Welcome to the Hagen Advisory Podcast. I am Rob Castaneris, and today we're going to be talking about divorce and women finding a new financial identity after a divorce. And today we're talking to my friend and client, Kelly, who has, in my estimation, had a really successful journey navigating this. And let's bring her on without further ado. Hi, Kelly. Thank you for talking to me today.
Of course. Anything
course.
you asked me to do.
I thought for sure you were going to say no. So I don't know about of course, but thank you anyway. I appreciate it for humoring me. We start with rapid fire questions. I didn't tell you about this. So you're going to get 8 seconds to answer each of these questions just to get started. So
8 seconds.
8 seconds each. What's your name?
My whole name?
I mean, Kelly's good.
Okay,
We'll
Kelly.
we'll skip that one. Where are you from?
Racine, Wisconsin.
Favorite movie?
When Harry Met Sally.
Favorite book?
Soylent Green.
That is uncalled for. We were talking about nutrition, and it's a long story, but no free ad placements here. We're not. Soylent is not sponsoring this podcast, so we're done. We're done with Soylent Green. That is not your favorite book. I'll give you 3 seconds.
What is my favorite book?
We'll come back to it. Favorite band? Musical artist?
Prince.
Wow. Man, I love getting surprised like this. Okay. Favorite city?
New York.
Your TV show, best ever. I was going to say top 3, but what do you think the best TV show?
Law and Order SVU.
Favorite Wu-Tang Clan rapper?
Who?
Just take a pass. And what actress would play you in a biography about you?
Meg Ryan.
I would hate these questions, so thanks for indulging me again. So, like I said, we're obviously talking about divorce today, everyone's favorite topic. But I think you've done a really good job in taking a bad situation and I don't know. Why don't I just let you tell it? I mean, 2013 is when we met, and your accounts had already been at the bank, and I come and I sit down with you, and you had just moved to Chicago not too long ago. Is that
August of 11.
okay? So the first thing that and this is a little disorganized, but let's put a pin in this. I did a little bit of research on divorce in general, and like some stuff that I thought that we might find interesting, because I definitely found it interesting. Again, we'll come back to how we started working together and I guess the chronology of it all. But so check this out. This is data as of just last year. So 10.8% of women in the U.S. are divorced. That's compared to 2.4% in 1950. These numbers shouldn't surprise me, but all of them have, and so I'm just going to hit you with all of them, and then let's just start there. 2.4% in 1950, 14.6 million divorced women in the U.S. compared to 11 million men. 15% of all women in the U.S. Report to being either divorced or separated. Right. And I've got to get this in there. So the sourcing on this is a group called Real Fathers' Rights. We couldn't help ourselves from mansplaining. We couldn't even focus on our own behavior. We had to look at yours. That just seemed noteworthy. So these few nuggets are from the Pew Research Center, and so apparently there's something called a gray divorce. I mean, little insensitive. It's for people over 50, but in 1990, there were 3.9 divorces per 1,000 married women. So I'll say that again. 1990, 3.9 divorced women out of 1,000, right? And in 2008, that jumped to 11, which is almost triple. So between 1990 and 2008, the divorce rate tripled. It's leveled off since then, but I thought that was curious that that 18 years, the rate of divorce basically tripled. Just a couple more. Divorced men are more likely than married men to be unemployed at 27% to 12%, and it's the opposite for women. So divorced women are unemployed at a rate of 24% versus 29%. It's all of these point towards one of the genders looking bad, and I didn't cherry pick these, but tell me if any of these hit you, any of these strike you as being interesting or abnormal or surprising.
A lot of them seem surprising. And then some don't seem surprising at all. From 1990 to 2018, you said?
2008.
2008.
Yeah.
Okay, those 18 years. I mean, that doesn't surprise
What
me.
happened in those 18 years that made the divorce rate go from 3.9 out of 1,000
11?
women to 11? I mean, it's almost triple.
Yeah.
I mean, Grey's Anatomy?
I don't know.
What-
Maybe
what-
maybe the what happened in the world 2008 when the
Yeah, but that's
everything
what.
crashed.
But that was the peak, right? I mean, it took
Yeah.
from 1990 to
Yeah,
2008.
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe women, maybe that was a time period. I'm just going to make up a story that women had more autonomy, more agency in their lives. Had more success in the corporate world, maybe in that time. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's just sort of like the generational shift where it became like more socially
Yeah.
acceptable to just like, walk away and say like, I'm done with this. I'm not staying married.
Right.
For,
Well, that
for the
there's
kids
I
anymore.
mean, there's a lot of that I would think too that it
I guess that was
became
probably.
more not the word successful, less of a stigma to be divorced.
Yeah. Well, and that stat about it's like 13.5 million women report to being divorced versus 11 million for men, right? Which the bullet point underneath that was that like men are more likely to remarry,
Right.
Which I actually don't understand that one. Like you could take that a number of
I
directions.
can't clarify that one for you either.
Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, I just figured that this is a good place to start because your journey was fascinating to me because when I met you, you were like new to Chicago, right? And like your divorce was a couple of years old or a few years old, and the more I got to know about you, the more I realized like that you kind of just started from scratch in a new city, right?
Totally. I came here in 11. My divorce was final in May of 2009. And my job is something that I can do anywhere in the world.
What do you do?
I'm a Pilates instructor. So my family living in Racine, growing up in Racine, Wisconsin, still mostly in Racine at the time. They still are. And having lived on the East Coast for about 20 years, it just seemed natural to kind of want to migrate back towards home. Both of my children were in college in this part. Well, one was in the Midwest and the other one was in Arizona. So it made logistical sense for me to come here to Chicago because I could do my job and be closer to my family. My parents were aging. Yeah. So that's pretty much how I got here.
Yeah, so there's a few like things that stand out for me that are like interesting about like sort of the before and after. So like before you got divorced, how you handled money and how you thought about money, I guess, or the extent to which you did, or the extent to which you were like inclined to deal with money, and the way you are now definitely seem to be strikingly different. Even just in the 13 years ago since we started working together. But of course, when you got divorced, I hadn't met you. So like, what stands out for you as like how you're different now, in terms of like even confidence, handling money and decision making now versus when you got divorced and you were dealing with like brand new reality of like, okay, like I am on my own with this at least for a while or indefinitely. And so, can you talk about like what that shift was like? Because um, like I keep saying, I think you're doing a pretty you've done a really good job building a financial foundation for yourself.
Thank you. I mean, I guess you could say it was a complete 180. I mean, when I was married, very traditional. I my that was my husband's job. He paid the bills. He worked. I stayed home, raised my children. We lived in New York. My husband had a great job, ran a publishing company, um, didn't have to worry about money, had a lovely home, nice car. We traveled all over the world. So, I mean, my life was, let's just say I had a great life. My kids did too. And so I did not, I didn't pay the bills. I couldn't have told you what the mortgage was. Um, I remember, I think I told you this, excuse me, weekly I would take out $500 out of the ATM machine for anything that I needed for the week. And if I needed more, I could always get more. I mean, it wasn't like there was, um, I was always given and told and under the impression that money wasn't an issue and that was no problem. I wasn't going out buying Rolex watches on a daily basis, but living, raising two kids, you know, and didn't have a clue about anything, to be honest, about finances.
Until it's kind of like a one day sort of thing, right?
Yes, until my husband came home and told me he didn't want to be married anymore, and that's pretty much what happened. And for various reasons. And then, I liken it to, so if you live in Chicago, being hit from behind by the 65 bus is pretty much how it occurred to me. And a lot of people will say, well, how did you not know anything or whatever? You know, so if you fast forward through that, now I am fully self-supporting, and I'm working in my little Pilates studio in my home, making $1,000 a month, of which a person cannot live on that unless you, I don't know, if I pitched a tent somewhere. I don't know.
Well, you could buy Soylent. I mean, we just found that it's like it's like
Exactly.
$2 a meal, so you'd be good there.
So it was a lot. It was a shock. It took me some time, you know. I had grown up in a really blue collar, middle class family. I have two older sisters. My dad built tractors, was a UAW member. My mother worked actually as a salesman, she would say, back in the day, for a local office supply company, and it was pretty unusual in the 70s to have both of your parents working, but my mom worked as well. So I didn't grow up with the finer things in life. Uh, you know, that happened to me while I was married. But I kind of feel like, you know, I had a good foundation of understanding of things when it comes to money. At least my parents were very, they had more of a fear around it, fear of not enough mentality, you know. So to me, neither one of those is great. To spend more than you make by, you know, a lot, which was going on in my marriage, which I was unaware of, and then, you know, white knuckling it through um, fear around money, not having enough. It's also kind of not the way that I want to live my life either. Um,
Well, yeah, I definitely think that blue collar background and like the success that I've observed from you are like they're not unrelated. I think a silver spoon is just a great way to create bad, not even create. I think bad habits become almost inevitable because there was no sacrifice that was imparted on you. It's not in your DNA for like the decisions you make about money. So I keep thinking about the so when you find out that you know you're no longer going to be married, that is also the same day that you found out that your financial situation was not what you thought it was or what it was portrayed to you to be, right?
right.
So not to just tell me if we are spending too much time on this or if it's just not something that a place that you want to go to, but like having to deal with the new reality of like no longer be married and the surprise of your financial situation being way worse than what you thought it would
Right.
be. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess if you want to know the full picture about who I am and how I got here, it's an important piece of the puzzle. I mean, it was actually the day before my husband announced that he did not want to be married anymore. Um, Through a bunch of circumstances, I decided to to look into what the finances were, and I knew in his closet there was a shoebox on the top shelf that he used to put the statements that would come in the mail, because this was before you did online banking, and go in that box and take a look at things. And what I found was, I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't have responsibility in any of this, just so people understand that. I mean, just because you don't know doesn't mean you don't have responsibility, right? Um, there was a total of about $180,000 worth of credit card debt that I did not know existed. Um, and because this was 2008, our home, because of the crash, however you want to put it, our home was worth half of what it was a year ago, so it was underwater. Um, we had two homes in Arizona. One ended up being a bankruptcy, one he kept, and our home in New York ended up being a short sale. So for me, in the divorce, what that meant was there was nothing to be had. The only thing that there was to be had was half of a 401k. There were some stock options that I knew were obtained while we were married. And so I wanted a percentage of that when they were able to be vested, if that's
yeah,
the proper term. And then just, maintenance from his income, which meant he had to be employed. So, and if that was not the case, then can I say the word? I was screwed. I mean, I was,
yeah, Mike Sapia.
So it was, um, I mean, when I look back on it, of course, it makes all the sense in the world, knowing who my ex-husband is. And I'm not saying he's a bad person, but just knowing the reality and accepting the reality of who that person is or was when we were together. I mean, you know, I mean, yeah, so it was a lot more challenging than I would have expected it to be um, for somebody who was making, $500,000 a year at that time. You know, people be like, "Well, didn't you get half the house?" Well, there wasn't half of a house to be
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a bit more complicated than I had expected things to be.
Yeah. So moving to Chicago, that sounds like it was like around 3 years or so, like after. Because the question I
Yeah.
keep, I'm, how long did it take you to get your footing, right? Or like that you sort of felt even like halfway on solid ground from, from the bad day, like day one, to like, all right, I think I might be able to handle this thing.
Oh, you know, quite a while. I mean, even when I moved to Chicago, um, it was still, I was still trying to figure out my way. My dog and I like to say my dog and I kind of dropped out of the sky and found an apartment. And, I'd like to say I was on sabbatical for a few months before I found my job. But I
Oh,
always knew in the back of my mind, my maintenance was for 12 years. That's all. And so that date, that 12 years, was always in the back of my head that those 12 years are going to go by fast. And then what are you going to do? So I was kind of in my mindset racing against the clock and figuring out how do I become fully self supporting past those 12 years? And what do I need to do within those 12 years to create as much of a nest egg as I possibly can? Because I was almost 50 when I moved here. And women who have not been in the workforce, anyone who hasn't been in the workforce, but particularly women, I'm going to say, you know, my greatest income growth potential had passed me as far as because of my age, because you know, was raising children and thank God I had a Pilates hobby.
well, it's skill. And so you moved to the city without, you came from New York, Chicago, and so you didn't have a job.
No, I did not have a job. I
Oh,
didn't know anybody.
I mean, that makes it more impressive. I mean, for me, right? So like, talk about a leap of faith, right? Like I'm going here. I'm going to be closer to my parents. I'm picking the most logical, city to be in because, I'd like to enjoy myself, while I find, work. And so you said it took you a few months, right?
Yep, I happened to move into an apartment that overlooked where I work.
And
And I asked someone in the dog park, what's that big building that looks like a beehive where people come in and out of it?
right.
And because Midwesterners are so friendly, which I was not used to, she's like, oh, I'm a member. I'll take you on a tour. She took me on a tour. I looked in the Pilates studio. I handed my business card to the woman who was running the joint at the time. And I was hired a couple months later.
So when you say it took you a while before you felt like, and look, I mean, I'm sure, on some days, depending on the day, like, um, all of us feel like, we're on solid footing more some days than others, but like, you know, generally or directionally, would you say like, certainly 10 years after the divorce, did you feel like, I've got this and like I've got a good system based on what I have, set of rules that I've implemented for myself, and did you think 10 years was enough time for you to feel confident?
Probably you're a big part of that because when I met you, I don't even know how. I must have had a Chase account, and then whatever I think whatever half money of my 401, whatever I was given, I put into the bank, right?
Yeah, that this is part of what I'm interested in is that like because to me, um, there's a big decision to make, right? So when there's the divorce settlement and you have a decision to make, right? Of I'm receiving this half of this retirement account. I am curious as to how the decision went for you of like where the heck am I supposed to bring this, right? Because like the uh, assuming that there was a financial advisor in your guys' life while you were married, at some point between day one of the divorce and arriving in Chicago, you had to make a conscious decision of like where is my half going, and
Right.
do you recall how that sort of went?
I think it was sheer luck. I really don't. I honestly, I don't think we had a financial advisor. I don't think if we did, I didn't know who that person was. But I really don't think we did because nobody would be um, that reckless. I
Right.
mean, you can't control your clients, but advising them,
Yeah.
if he was getting advice, it was bad advice.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I just decided I knew I couldn't and didn't want to spend that money. Like I knew that money was not mine to touch. That I had to put it in something where I didn't have penalties and money taken out of it, right? So I Chase was probably closest walking distance from my apartment. It could have been as simple as that to
Yeah.
to put my money.
So then, did you pick the financial advisor at the bank in Chicago? That wasn't done like in New York or
No,
so it was after.
it was after.
Okay.
I knew I must have put it somewhere in the meantime. I don't really
I mean,
remember.
it might have stayed
Or it
with
might
your
not
ex
have been.
until
Yeah, I'm
you after you moved and like you knew
right.
it was because look, I think the thing that's impossible to get around is that and just doing my best trying to put myself in my client's shoes who've been in this spot like when women get divorced and they either have not had a financial advisor or they had one but like their husband dealt with it. To me, it's got to be a terrifying thing of like, who do I pick and why? And how am I supposed to know if this particular guy or gal is the right person? And because there's no measuring stick, right? Like, so you've got no frame of reference. And so this sounded to me like this was another leap of faith, right? Because like the bank was close to the apartment, there was an investment guy there, and you picked them. And for better or worse, like this was where the money was going to be until there was reason to do otherwise. Does that
Right.
sound about right?
Right.
Um,
I mean, I knew no one. So
yeah,
it wasn't
that's
like I had friends here in Chicago that I could say, "Hey, who do you use for,
yeah,
this or that or anything?" I just
yeah. And a strange thing of irony thing I hear think like in this case, let's say you had known a bunch of people here and you were directed to 3 or 4 or 5 different people to interview. I think this process goes worse for you, right? Too many choices, too much, like too many data points to make this decision, and I think you would have actually felt less confident having more people to choose from. There's like actually, I'm interested in this sort of decision making phenomenon. There's a little bit of academic research on this, right, where like you get a number, a meaningful amount of choices to choose from, and you just end up going backwards, and you have less confidence than when you actually started. That these people know what they're talking about, and this sort of phenomenon works for any vocation where you are looking for an expert or advice. But it could be doctors, it could be lawyers, it could be a financial advisor. You sit with 4 or 5, you get conflicting information from each of them, and something happens. It's called diminished credibility through conflict, right? And so like you sit with four, it could be doctor, it could be lawyer, it could be financial advisor. Inevitably, you're going to get differing opinions, and I think the human nature tendency is when our brains receive this conflicting information, we the whole group loses credibility. Even from the most credible to the least credible doesn't matter. I think our brains are telling us that none of these people know what they're talking about. I don't know who to believe, and then the next step is our brain tells us to now rely just simply on instinct and no like facts, logic go out the window, and now it's just like a gut check of like who creeped me out the least, and like you did, right? And I mean, true, right? Like it's funny, but like don't we do that with like doctors and like lawyers too? Like which we don't pick our doctors based on like, oh, this guy went to Harvard versus Wisconsin, so like I'm picking that guy. No, it's I think bedside manner is a real thing, and like the human interaction part of this. So the fact that you had the ability to make a leap of faith and choose based on just proximity and not, I think you just did yourself a favor, either consciously or on accident, by not seeking out 3, 4, or 5, because I think you would have had a harder time finding somebody that you'd be able to trust.
Agreed. I didn't even know what questions to ask, to be honest, because I didn't, you know, money wasn't my responsibility in most of my life married, right? All of my life when I was married.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I guess I never looked at it that way. It really was just a leap of faith. I'm like, here you go.
Yep. And I think that ability to take that leap of faith, it's not super common, and it is it's a trait that served you well, right? And good luck, bad luck. Everybody's going to get doses of each, but I just think by wiring, right, the way that your brain was inclined to make this decision, it definitely not that I'm sure there was not one easy day of this. I guess the point that I'm clumsily making here is that it was made less bad by way of you being able to take a leap of faith, right, and not having to just scrutinize 5 different. Right, because I've seen it. I've seen people take notes, and they've got like a little spreadsheet, and they've got pros and cons of 5 different people, and without fail, every single time, it is a mountain. It's a ton of data that leaves people more unsure of what to do than when they started. So you mentioned that when you got to Chicago and you were you resigned as new reality of like, I have to look after myself, and I've got to make this. I've got to do whatever I can to make this last beyond the 12 years, right, of maintenance. I'm curious as to what did you come up with as far as like these are things that I have to do to survive and to come out of this in reasonably good shape. Do you remember like the things that you put in place there?
Well, working was key, and then saving as much as I could was key, while still having a life at the same time. Not feeling like I'm eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day, right?
I like PB&J though.
You do, you don't?
I mean, I think it's great,
Oh.
but I see your point. Like, it's
I'm not
obviously
saying they're bad. It's not because they're bad. It's cheap.
I was wishing you used a different example there because that one made me sad a little bit. All right, so was it as simple as that? Like you decided, like, oh, these are 3 or 4 things I need to do, and I'm just going to do them every year, and here we are.
Well, I think
12,
when I met you,
15 years later, and like
it I remember one of the big things, and I don't know if this was happening when you and I met, or if it was, well, no, because I might have already been participating, but at my employer, At that time, you had to work there 1,000 hours
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
before you could participate. They've since removed that rule, by the way. The minute you are hired, you can participate. Um, so I would go into HR every single week, and I would stick my head in, and Gina, the lovely HR person, was like, she would just yell out the number, how close I was, and then I would walk out because the minute
It's
I
an
hit
interesting
1,000
system.
hours, I was in participating in 401k.
Okay.
So, and then I don't know if it was you, and I don't even know that might have been your idea, but you know, once I was eligible, then all of my paycheck, but about $200 went into my account. And
Yeah, I remember we did do that for a while, just to take advantage of the the maintenance coming in, right, and just sort of
right.
squirreling it away,
And I was
for,
still
for
saving
later.
some of that money in a different place as well. It wasn't like I was just living on all of that.
Yeah,
There was still some conscious effort not to spend all of that money just because it was there. Um, you know, I don't know where I heard this somewhere. You need to have a 6 month, you know,
yeah, yeah.
savings account to cover 6 months of your living expenses just in case.
Yeah, I think that's one of those generic rules of thumb that I actually think are, is generally. I think a lot of those lack context and they don't apply to most people. This one I think actually does. Like that's just generally, it's a pretty good rule, right? And you saved that, and then now it was like, and once that was sort of checked off the list, you were free to do other stuff or save in other places or spend in other places. And this perfect segue, like sort of like testing myself, my own, like, all right, so why Kelly and why, what is it about her journey and her habits that, oh, we'll get lucky. Sorry, we can edit. I'll trust your work post. The the right. So the question I ask myself is like, what I think that people can learn, or basically better ask, like, what did Kelly do well, right? That got her to a position of financial security that could not have been easy to get to, and the three things that just came super easy that just sort of just spilled right on the page. I definitely think you avoided extremes, right? And you already touched on it earlier, right? Like you didn't save too much, you didn't spend too much, and I think behaviorally that goes. If someone gets, particularly, they say when a really bad life event happens, like don't make any big decisions for 12 months, that sort of thing,
Right.
and that sort of logic. What I think ends up happening if you fall victim to that is, a really bad thing happens, so I'm really going to look after myself, and some people like really lean into that real far, right? Like they will pamper themselves. I know that's not like in your DNA, or they will, or look, shopping just like, food, drugs, alcohol. Like that can be a real vehicle of self medication, right? That's I don't think that's super surprising or foreign, right?
I turned to yoga. That was sort of what happened to me.
Well, but well, that is as probably productive as a self medication, that I can think of, and good on you for choosing it. But like the other extreme that you avoided is the opposite, right? Like you did not become a hermit, right? I remember, you come by the bank, or you walk by the bank saying like, I'm going to go meet friends, and it's like, oh, cool, right? She's like, enjoying this new city, and she's, she's not having this, real nasty event, it's not letting herself turn her. She's not letting it turn herself into like a shut-in of like which also would have been understandable because like you're totally on your own and like what, right? So like I thought one, you avoided the big extremes, which is another way of saying like you had a really good balance, right? Of like not spending too much or not saving too much. Two, I think the friend group thing was key, right? Like I think it's really like you know this, like I've been through a divorce too, and the like the friends that matter, like they present themselves, for me at least they did, and it seems like this happens when like bad stuff happens. They come out, they present themselves right away, and I think the opposite happens too. Like the ones that you know aren't maybe as good of friends as you know what you would thought they were, what you would hope they were. They present themselves too, and so um, and I think absent that, when like people don't have you know even one or two people to lean on or to you know sort of serve as a guardrail of like you know dude, you got to come out of the house. You've been, you know, you've been lone wolfing it for way too long. Like you're going out tonight, or the opposite, right? Like it's time to rein it in, right? Like so you had, it seems, you know, a support system to like, you know, not be totally on your own all the time, and you know, and I think that has a humongous impact on financial results. It doesn't seem to track. Those dots don't seem super logical to connect. But I think it absent that, it gets real easy to be self destructive, and I think financially um, is part of that. And so the last one, do I remember the last one? Um, balance friends, and it'll come to me the worst time. But um, does any of that surprise you? That like that's how I was looking at you know your financial life, and how I sort of arrived at this place of like, hey, Kelly, I'm picking you to come talk to people, because I think you do have things that people can learn from. You know, I just think of you know these you heard the stats, right? These divorces, they're not. It might not be 50%, but they're not slowing down. They're not. They might not be picking up steam, but like you know, they happen to be pretty common. And I think just there's a fairly large amount, just raw quantity of people every year that are going to go through what we went through, and some are going to navigate it in a way that you did, and some are going to really come out worse for their wear. So.
Yeah, it was really, really scary in the beginning because I did not. It's hard for humans to imagine this. I'm making up that story right now. In 2026, that you know I was married for 24 years, and 20 of them, when my kids showed up, I did not have a career. I did not have a source of income on my own. And then to be 48 years old, and now you're on your own, and you gotta support yourself at least in 12 years, right? And then I would be even older, which is not to my, it's not a positive thing, right, for society. So, I mean, there was a sense of urgency that sort of was an undercurrent for a while. And even now, sometimes I think to myself, oh, probably. It took me a while to to learn how to live and cut back on certain things that I was used to buying, right? I'm just going to make it as probably like, so I like nice shoes. I know, stereotypical.
It's,
All right. But I like nice shoes. And
okay.
so I used to be able to buy as many nice pairs of shoes as I wanted, right? But I was never that extremes, as you pointed out, even when I was married. But what I learned to do then was to allow myself once a year a nice pair of shoes, as opposed to 6 or 7 in a year, right? So, you know, it took me a while to, but it was sink or swim, man. I mean,
Yeah, blue collar background, right? I mean, I
yeah.
was going to keep coming back to that as like the source of a source or a big source of, yeah, how was she able to suck it up and to deal with it? And upbringing is like, no one escapes it,
I
right?
mean, no, and I mean, I didn't want to end up living under the North Avenue Bridge
Oh yeah,
at
that's
the end of 12 years because I got nothing. I mean, I have family, but I mean, and I have two children. I have grown sons who, you know, it was extremely important to be especially at what happened in our family, to be, right or wrong, good or bad, a good example of of you know, New Yorkers we say chutzpah. Here it's that sense of what's the word I'm looking for, that you just tenacity, or
grit.
starts with an I that my brain cannot. I'll just blurt it out in the middle of something you're saying.
Oh, this is like password. Perseverance, not tenacity. Yeah.
Starts with an I. Dang
Oh, I know. Soylent.
it. No, that's it.
It's not incandescent. It's not irritable.
It's that sort of intangible thing about somebody that they, whether they know it or not, whether they're aware of it or not, you know, they have the guts to just do what needs to be done, and
Irrepressible. That's. I mean, that's not the where you're going. It's now
no.
become like the synonym
Oh
game.
my gosh. Yeah. Um,
But I'm picking up what you're putting down though. It's
yeah. So
you just bootstrapped it. You
yeah,
like,
I mean, you either have it or you don't. It's either part of who you are or it isn't. Um,
well, I mean you're
okay, so and I don't mean that to sound like I'm better than other people,
no.
because that's not what I'm talking about. It's just that, I also knew I never wanted to get married again, right? And I also knew that if I was in a relationship, and part of a divorce agreement when it comes to most states that I'm aware of, if you get married, your alimony ends.
Yeah.
And there was nobody going to separate me from that. So there was no way I was going to marry anybody, even if I did, they would have had to sign a prenup that they would pay me what was owed to me at the time we got married if we got divorced. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, and look, I think the thing I wonder is, after going through, just the traumatic event of one day of finding out, your life is not what you thought it was. Despite that, like, I don't get the impression that you think it's impossible to ever trust a guy again, like with money, because like, or maybe I'm totally wrong about that, and I know there's like levels to this, and there's right, but like,
Yeah, it's not really about the other person. I think, if anything, I was more upset with myself with how I had allowed things to happen. So a cautionary tale for me would be if I just wouldn't be in the dark about it. I would hope that I would have all of the information. And the relationship that I was in for 7 years, integrity around money was one of the, one, I don't want to say the word many things, one of the things that this person never let me down on, and was always upfront and helpful to me about, like, all of that financial integrity. So, that, but it's still a thing that I don't think that I would ever completely trust anybody about.
yeah, it seems impossible, right? I mean, you go to such great lengths, such difficulty, such just emotional duress. Like there's no like you built this like fortress for yourself that like I just can't see any way that you would ever let that get jeopardized, and not just you particular, but just anyone in that spot, right?
Yeah.
Like it takes 10 years, maybe it takes 5, maybe it takes 8, but like there's no chance you're never letting that you know structure get toppled down like ever again. You know, by
I mean, that would just demonstrate that I don't care about myself. I mean, that's what that says to me. If I let that all, if I let somebody else
oh,
do what how my marriage was put together at the time, that I mean, those that would be making a decision that could be potentially harmful to me. And if I haven't learned anything, you,
yeah, no, that's I think it's a super practical way of looking at it. I do worry about people who just like who sounds like how it sounds, but like I just think there's people who just want love so bad that like I will roll the dice because I just want to be with this person and there's some red flags here, but like and I really hope that what I built for the last like 8 years or 12 years doesn't get, you know, knocked over like a house of cards, but like I want this and I'm gonna roll the dice. And I've seen that spot before and it's like, man, I am crossing my fingers for you because I don't think you can do that recovery twice.
no, and I think that the lesson I wanted to say, I think I got hit in the head so hard the first time, but I don't want to say that. Instead of saying that, it's like the lesson was.
No, you said it. It's cool. It's cool. You already
The
said it.
lesson was so large for me that I, you
Yeah.
know, once you see something, sometimes you can't unsee. So
That's a choice too, right? Like you know, my
well,
point.
and
Some
I
people
know
were hard headed,
women.
like, and I just want what we want, and
Yeah.
like they want, but you want two things at the same time, and you just have to decide which one do we want more. You want them
Yeah.
both real bad, right? And to you, it's like, yeah, I might want this thing over here, but there's zero chance this is ever going to supersede this. Like this is the thing that will be protected at all costs, and there's no two ways about it.
I mean, I know women who've done that 3 times. That got married a second time, lost their maintenance, and then got divorced, and and I like to say, when it comes to money, if I'm owed money, I'm like a dog with a bone.
Oh yeah,
So
I mean, I owe you $7, and I haven't heard the
you're
end of
in
it
trouble,
for like.
man. It's now $7.80. But it you know, it was a hard lesson to learn, but ultimately I think it was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Also a choice to look at it like that, right? I mean, if I could, this wasn't on the list, but if I could add, you know, another one to the list of things that I definitely think got you here is you also avoided like consciously, I'm sure it was kind of like embitterment. I think that gets expensive. And another two strange dots to connect, but like, man, if you're somebody who has a bad thing happen to them and then you're just like on a revenge tour and like that's the thing that like is going to vindicate me like at all costs, like this person's going down or like I'm getting X and I don't care how I have to get it or what it takes. Think about like how much that could derail a financial plan, right? It's this,
Sure. I mean, and so sad.
yeah,
You
oh
know,
yeah. These things usually end up like getting I think we generally like view these things as like worthy of like mockery and ridicule. I you know look I probably thought that way at one point. I immediately go to pity now, right? Like, oh, that's got to be awful to not be able to, um, you know, look after yourself or to sacrifice looking after yourself at all costs at a clear danger and risk of just sabotaging yourself. Like it's
I I could have, and I think in the beginning I did see myself as a victim. that took me a while to not see myself as a victim of what happened, right? Of him, my ex husband. Um, I mean, but you can't be a victim and take care of yourself. Your
Whoa.
your care is then placed upon everybody outside of yourself, right? Like all the responsibility of my life, I handed to my ex-husband. I mean, not all of it, but financially, because that's what we're sitting here chatting about, right? I gave that to someone else, and then I claimed to be a victim of it, right? And in some ways, I was. It wasn't. It was a, you know. But if I sat there even to this day and was angry at him about what he did today, I mean, oh, Lordy. I mean, it's sad. I would be just this. I probably would have been married 3 other times by now, is what I would have done.
Yeah, I think that anger just gets like all consuming for, and this one is definitely not gender specific, right? I mean, there's guys who will just swear that my ex is the worst person of all creation, and
Sure.
I'm only in this spot for her, and if not for her, like I'd be, you know, I don't know. I think that's a real valuable skill. To be able to make a conscious decision, like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that, and
Yeah, I mean, and my ex husband was married 18 months later to someone who was 29, had a child with her, so I had all kinds of reasons to have victim pity party or anger, all that. I try to keep my spoon in my own bowl.
you should teach that. It's a big old market out there for people who I think could or should pay real money for that, because it. I mean, it's not pleasant, but like these circumstances like that really can derail somebody, or if not like ruin them for a little bit, right? And like just to
Acceptance
have,
is the key. Accepting reality for what it is really hard for us humans. I didn't accept the reality of what happened to me for quite a while.
I never thought of this until just a second, but do you think like what you're taught in Pilates, do you think like the any of your ability to recover from this and what you're taught in Pilates, or like what's adjacent maybe even to like what's taught in Pilates, like there seems to be some like Eastern wisdom component to that certainly would come in like real handy to this particular conundrum, or
Yeah,
my way off base there?
no, no. The thing that my work has taught me, among a whole plethora of things, one is to listen to my intuition, which in my work,
Why does your work teach you that?
I'm very good at my listening to my intuition when I'm working with someone. I did not believe my intuition in my marriage when it came to finances. It tapped me on the shoulder a number of times, but I chose to look the other direction. And when I work with people, one of the things that drew me to teaching Pilates was presence. So when I work with someone, I have to be present. I can't look at my phone. I can't wave hi to Frank as he goes by the office. I can't.
Well, you could. You just wouldn't be very good at it, right?
No,
Like,
yeah. I mean, I can't even. I don't even have my phone on me. I probably have one of the only
whoa,
jobs left in the universe where my phone is somewhere else when I'm working,
wow.
and I don't look at it. I can't look at it. I don't have time to look at it. And when you have someone's well-being, and I don't mean it as like a doctor or
Yeah.
anything, but when I'm working with a person, the equipment is dangerous, right? Recently, where I work, somebody someone broke their nose because the equipment, they were not paying attention. Somebody got hit in the head with a metal. Like there were a couple of accidents that happened where I work recently that was like, yeah, like everyone needs to be paying attention.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
and when I'm working with people, I love what I do so much that I just time stands still.
Huh.
And I'll look at the clock and I'll be like, "Oh, damn it." Like I have 20 other things I want to do with somebody given whatever it is that's going on, whatever it is they're asking me for, and there's 5 minutes left. And I'm so lucky and so grateful that that's what I get to do every day. And but presence means is a lot. You can't be seeking revenge on somebody and be present at the same time.
So then it actually does track that your work and the skill set that you cultivated while teaching Pilates played at least some role in helping you get out of a dark hole, right? I mean, like it's not unrelated.
No,
So,
not
like,
at all.
if you were a bartender, if you moved to Chicago and decided to tend bar for, this would have ended up different.
I mean,
You
possibly.
probably never thought about it, but like, and I, but like, I guess I don't know. Kind of stands to reason, maybe.
I mean, it could have, yeah, but because before I was teaching Pilates, I was either in my life mad about the past
Wow.
or thinking about the future.
Yeah, and those are like the actual definitions of depression, anxiety, right? Like depression is like being in the past, and anxiety is being in the future. And
Yeah.
if Pilates helps mitigate both of those two, then I guess
Yeah.
that's maybe do Pilates is the whole point of this podcast. Is everybody stop what you're doing and go sign up for a damn
But-
Pilates class. Like I'm actually
And
thinking
not
about it.
everybody gets out of it what it is that I'm talking about either. It's more of an intuitive. Let's just say that word too many times, but it's. And you might use the word gut feeling about things. I don't know the actual word for this, but this is an actual thing because my lawyer friend, who's very black and white analytical, who I adore, she looked it up and texted me, and she's like, "Oh my God, this is an actual thing." So oftentimes when I have a client come into the studio and they're doing basic warm up stuff, my head will start to hurt. And I'll ask them, "Do you have a headache? Like right here?" And they're like, "Yeah," but they didn't tell me. So I can feel and pick up other people's pain, and I'm not doing it. Even when they're doing an exercise, which I don't mind because I get the benefits of the exercise without actually doing it. But like my back will start to burn when I'm giving something an exercise that makes that happen on purpose.
Get out of here.
And when I first started teaching and that would happen to me, I would deny that. I'd be like, "What the hell? Like, this isn't happening.
Yeah, you'd be like, grow up, Kelly. This
Like,
isn't. You don't.
Come on."
You ain't no soothsayer or
Ridiculous.
whatever
You're
that
making this shit
word
up.
is. What?
It's an actual, and I don't deny it. I mean, I've been teaching for over 20
text
years.
your friend. What's the word that she looked up? That this.
I can't remember I can't remember what it's called, but because she was like,
I gotta
of
know.
course, very, didn't believe me.
Ethan, call her up. Take Kelly's phone right now. We got a quick call on this lady. I got to find out right
My
this
friend
second.
Libby.
What
Yeah.
the hell?
It's a thing.
Starts with an I. Does this also start with an I?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
Damn.
But it, and I really, I don't know. I have found in my life the more I listen to it, the better off I am. So
mean,
it's an internal guidance system. I mean, I don't know.
You got it. You got a
That-
GPS the rest of us don't have.
I don't know. I mean, other people have it,
I don't know.
I just get to develop it in the work that I do.
Yeah, but you do it dozens of hours a week times, for years and years and years. I mean,
Right.
that
So
is,
when you do anything that much, you get,
yeah.
well, hopefully you get good at it.
So I definitely think that the work that you did and the Pilates and the amount and all the years of being present with people played a role in making you whole again, or well, like, you know, get out of a dark hole and get into a good spot. I do not think that was a coincidence. I'm actually kind of a little embarrassed that I was unsure that those two dots could be connected, but I definitely think that they are, because just think about that, your job compared to another job that would have really maybe even the opposite effect, or just you know no utility in helping you recover. It seems now pretty clear to me after talking about your work and the way that you think about it, that it played a role, right?
Definitely.
Um, what would you say, based on the old saying goes, like, if you knew then what you know now, and along those lines, like, is there anything you would either say to yourself then that you didn't know then that you know now, or if there's anything you could pick that you would be able to know then that you know now, or is it we learn these things when the time is right, and if had I known then what I know now, like, my journey would have been totally different. I guess I'm curious if you're content with the way that it all played out, or if there was like a real regret in not knowing one or two things then that you know now.
How far am I going back?
I don't know. At least to when you got divorced.
I mean, I wish I had more understanding of finances.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there would have been more discussions about things. I wouldn't have blindly just followed along.
Right. I mean, the what if game is tough, because if that played out, like, you'd be removing the source of pride that you've got right
Yeah,
now.
I
that,
probably
like,
would have gotten divorced sooner.
oh, all right.
And it may have been initiated by me then, knowing who my ex-husband was at the time.
Do you wish that's the way that it? Do you wish that's how it would have went
No,
down, or are you okay
just
with?
no, but I can make up that story that my knowledge would have changed the way that we ran things, or that he ran things. Because we had always had differing opinions about finances, as far as what we were comfortable with, how much
Yeah.
debt we were comfortable with. I knew that we had a big difference of opinion in that. And I kind of wish, in some ways, that I had finished my college degree and was a teacher, right? I wanted to be a teacher. And so if I had been a teacher,
Well, you're teaching now, right? And it's
I
not the
am
way
a
that you
teacher
thought.
now, but a teacher in a school with a pension, or whatever, but I mean, that's not how it turned out,
Yeah.
and I, I am not a fan of, in fact, I deplore the whole sentence, everything happens for a reason. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not. I was just. That's where my head was going to.
But it is, you come to things when you come to things.
Yeah.
I was pretty unconscious about a lot of things when I was married.
Yeah, and I think the whole revisionist history thing is like, had you handled your marriage differently, like, you'd be, certain things wouldn't have happened. You would have avoided certain unpleasantries then, but you would have deprived yourself of clearly positive things, that you accomplished or created for yourself now. And I just don't like that, exploring that trade-off, because one, like, what good, it's hypothetical, what good does it do, and two, like, Yeah, stuff happens when it happens, and it's, like, I don't know, it doesn't have to be for some cosmic reason. It's just like the way that the cookie crumbled, and you know,
Right. And I think, like you pointed out a couple of times, always going back to the way that I was raised has been an influence. Um, Probably some would say negatively and positively, but financially, it was you know, I don't have the same um experiences as my parents did, so the fear around money was not the same. Um, but I was also acutely aware of the time. Like there was a finite amount of time that I was going to be collecting money from my ex-husband, and I needed to make sure that I wanted to do as many right things as I could to make all of that last as long as I could. And
yeah. But then, I don't know, the wherewithal to think like that. To me, it definitely, um, in part, comes from, um, in your upbringing, the absence of a silver spoon, allowed you to have the humility to say, like, "Hey, clock's ticking on this. I am not, um, I'm not thinking that, this money is just going to magically keep coming, or that
right.
somebody's going to bail me out, or somebody is going to save me, or or any of that." And I think that's, you know, um, that's definitely that's definitely a positive. So it's no one thing, right? If we're like making a
No.
blueprint for like somebody to navigate, a divorce, and, to create a new financial identity, and to, um, make good out of a bad situation. It's never one thing, right? That's can be prescribed for any big, endeavor or accomplishment. It's a series of a number of things, and I think we're just sort of backing into a lot of them from, from upbringing to the fact that you decided, that a Pilates, studio is a place where you are, at home, and like, and it's different for everybody, which makes advice tricky in the first place, right? Because like, what works for you is, you know,
Might not work for someone else. And it's interesting. My upbringing influenced me in positive ways in this scenario financially, and also I really can't leave out the fact that I spent living 20 years, 24 years with someone that you know um, ended up who's very good at his job and still is to this day, ended up, you know, my support of the family, raising the kids, blah blah blah, and us moving from Milwaukee to Boston to New York, all for the purpose of his job, and then achieving a certain amount of success financially as well as for him in corporate scenario. Living that kind of life was totally different than how I was raised, just an economic differences, and knowing how to navigate living that informs me and helps me relate to my clients, because most of my clients
they've got their
are
own.
me when I was married.
Whoa.
And I don't mean in the negative sense of it, as in Pilates, an hour with me is $150.
Oh.
So financially, you're in a different place if you're hiring me.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
You are, but I think another thing that definitely checks out in terms of like your clients are you.
Well,
When you were
when I
married.
was that.
Yeah, but like, don't you think it's true that, and Pilates and yoga, seem to attract people who are searching for something, and whether it's, a specific kind of, overall wellness, or some kind of like respite from trauma, like that. I'm not making that up, am I?
No, well, in my own experience, more yoga has that more spiritual sort of aspect to it. Pilates, people come in most of the time someone has an injury,
Ah,
and then I'm helping them recover from an injury. A lot of times people have had an injury, they're in PT, they get kicked out of physical therapy, and then we're the next person they
why
see
they get kicked out?
because they're done,
Right,
right?
right,
So
right.
you've done your 6 months of
Got
physical
it.
therapy after you've had your knee replacement. You know, the next thing a physical therapist might recommend to you is, if you haven't been doing it already, is to do yoga or Pilates, right?
Okay.
Um, so we're sort of the next thing down the line, right? For that's how I get a lot of my clients.
Okay.
Rarely do I have a healthy 20 something show up in my schedule.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that. I never thought of Pilates like.
But it's in the one-on-one setting, right? So
Oh, like a group
group
Pilates class. Yeah,
group
yeah.
classes like chains like Club Pilates and places like that, they have all the healthy 20 somethings and 30 somethings, because
Got it.
you know, you can pay 25 or $30 for a class with a group of people. It's a lot different from $150, right? So um,
Well, is there anything that you want to ask about or talk about in terms of this subject? I mean, I can only think that if there's anything, like this would be a good spot. Like if there's anything that you felt like imparting, or if you had any thoughts, if you or somebody were, um, like if you could talk to yourself knowing that you're about to get divorced, or if somebody that you were close to was, you know, imminent, had a divorce that was imminent, either it obviously initiated by them, if they knew it was gonna happen, like what should those people know? I'm trying to think for my self. It's I can't think of. There's no one piece of advice or wisdom that stands out, because I guess everyone's different, or because maybe I just haven't thought about that much.
I mean, in general, just do the next right thing. Just keep doing the next right thing, whatever that is for you, and keep your spoon in your own bowl.
I've never heard that expression, but I like it.
I mean, I like to say this. I say this all the time to people. Besides, keep your spoon in your own bowl is, I mean, acceptance is the key. I think the only thing, if I had been able to come to acceptance of what was quicker, I might have saved it a little extra, right? But we come to things when we come to things, you know. But keeping your own integrity and your side of the street clean is the thing.
That is useful. I think that's really good advice. Well, thank you for talking today.
Thank you, Ralph.
We did over an hour, so I don't know how much of this is gonna
Oh,
see the light of
Lordy,
day.
McGordy,
But
we don't want
my
that
God,
much.
did I just run
Ethan,
off?
it's all your
Did I just
fault.
run off at the mouth? So have fun with this one, Ethan. And thanks again, Kelly. I really appreciate it for
Thank you.
humoring me. I enjoyed it. Yeah, that's all for today. We'll see you next time.